a terrifying 4 hours. Iraqi forces with their U.S. advisors raided the church.
On October 31st, 2010, al-Qaeda insurgents laid siege to Our Lady of Salvation Church in Baghdad, killing at least 52 people, including a priest. As tragic as the attack was, it's not an uncommon story in Iraq. The fact the target and scene of the crime was a Catholic church was shocking for some. Not Paul Johnson. Every day, his inbox is full of stories of people being persecuted for what they believe. And there are many ways that takes place.
It can range from harassment, simple displacement, into being removed from your job position, and ultimately, of course, can move into martyrdom.
In North America, our picture of martyrdom is an ancient one. But Johnson says it's a present reality for millions around the world. He's the executive director of Open Doors Canada, an organization that documents and defends the plight of persecuted Christians. Although it's hard to put an exact number on how many face threats for their faith, a Pew Research Center study found 1/3 of countries in the world severely restrict their citizens' freedom of religion. And nearly 70% of the world live in countries with high restrictions on religion. The biggest offender is North Korea.
They are completely pressured into underground situations. There have been hundreds and thousands who have been martyred for their faith. There are hundreds of thousands that are displaced from practicing their faith in the open, and many Christians are facing labor camp every day. And in fact, as we speak now, back-breaking labor camps and horrible starvation and processes.
Not surprisingly, Iran is second on the list of persecutors. What is surprising is the fact that the Christian church there is thriving.
What is so beautiful is that the tighter the vice becomes, the sweeter the juice that comes out of the believer. And there are a number of pastors presently in jail. There have been some house churches that have been invaded and shut down, and some number of believers arrested, some of them just for overnight or a couple of days. And so there's an exceptionally strong pressure on the church within Iran today.
It's the same story in other places where persecution is severe, according to Johnson. He adds, this paradox doesn't mean they don't need help or support from the outside.
So their prayer is not that persecution would necessarily stop, because it's not their creature comforts that they're worried about. It's the souls of the men and women who are their community. What they are really praying is that God would be seen through them, that the gospel of Jesus would be demonstrated through their lives, whether it's in time of ease or in extreme times of challenge.
Communicating their challenges is what organizations like Open Doors do. And that's a challenge in and of itself. Stories of religious persecution rarely make the news.
It's just not a popular message, and the world is not interested in specifically dealing with the issues of Christianity.
Cannot do it without.
That lack of awareness also exists in the Western Church. Sharon Ganesh is the director of Missionfest Toronto. A big part of their mandate is to bring these sort of issues to a wider audience.
We have so many different speakers that come from all across Canada and abroad who impart these stories because they live it, they breathe it, real life experiences. It's life impacting. When you come to Missionfest and you hear what they have to say, you don't leave there the same.
With so little media coverage of religious persecution around the world, telling stories is one of the most powerful ways to create awareness and advocate for change. That's why Missionfest partnered with Open Doors to show the film The Eastern Bride.
The film is about a globe-trotting businessman who comes face to face with persecuted Christians in the Middle East and China. Funded by Open Doors International, Johnson says it was a creative way to get the story out.
The Bible is full of storytelling of how it relates to people's lives, and so we just felt that it was a medium that we would be able to produce and then reproduce it into bulk and get it into hands of individuals so that they could take it home, take it to their small group, and get a picture of what it is like to serve Christ in a region that has either a government or a local system that is anti-Christ.
Ganesh says seeing the Eastern Bride inspired her to take action. She's hoping it will have the same effect on the audience.
Yes, I'm really hoping that this film is going to minister to the hearts of the people who come, and that they will take this seriously and know that their brothers and sisters out there that truly are violently being persecuted beyond what we could even possibly think of experiencing here. Here, persecution is very subtle, it's under the table, but there it's wide open and it's violent.
But is there something that can be done beyond prayer? Johnson says yes. Now more than ever, he says we need to pressure our governments to take action against regimes that violate freedom of religion. Open Doors recently started the Free to Believe campaign to stop the UN from adopting the Defamation of Religions resolution. The resolution, introduced by the Organization of Islamic Conference, would criminalize words or actions that denigrate religion. Instead of protecting believers from defamation, Johnson says these anti-blasphemy laws would only shield the dominant faith and endorse persecution of religious minorities.
There is this growing awareness that perhaps this resolution will create the lack of freedom of choice. We believe that there is a movement that is beginning to recognize it and for what it is, and we're praying to the Lord, and we're throughout the next months we're asking friends to write their members of parliament, to get in touch with their government, to really drill down and look at what this means.
Whether or not the resolution passes, he says we need to stay engaged with the issue of Christian persecution. In his 23 years working on behalf of these believers, he's seen some good things happen.
But we praise the Lord that places like China, we openly confess today that God's work within that nation has brought tremendous changes. I mean, there's 2 presses running there, printing Bibles and Christian literature. There are now bookstores, Christian bookstores, within a nation of China, where before, just to be caught with the Bible in your hand would have brought you into a place of imprisonment. And so, yes, there are great gains in regions. At the same time, it shifts geographically so that the work is continuing on. So, yeah, there's victory in the midst of challenge.
But most of all, working on behalf of people facing threats or even death for what they believe has strengthened his own faith.
To recognize that, to know about God, to revel in His presence is one thing, but to truly be so in love with Him and recognize His value, that His value is beyond compare. So much so that comfort care, personal care, life isn't nearly as valuable as Jesus Christ in that relationship.
On November 14th, churches around the world will be joining forces to pray for the persecuted church. To find out more on what you can do, go to idop.ca. In Toronto, Denise, Lodde, 100 Huntley Street.